Section 1, L. Ron Hubbard and the Birth of a Belief System. Section 2, Dianetics, the Foundation of Scientology. Section 3, From Science Fiction to Spiritual Empire. Section 4, Scientology's Global Expansion, Seeds of Controversy. Buckle up, folks, because we're diving headfirst into the wild world of Scientology. It all started with L. Ron Hubbard, a pulp science fiction writer with a penchant for the extraordinary. In 1950, Hubbard published Dianetics, the cornerstone of Scientology. He claimed to have cracked the code of the human mind, unlocking secrets to happiness and spiritual enlightenment. Dianetics groups sprouted up, laying the groundwork for a global phenomenon. Hubbard had even grander plans, a cosmic tapestry woven with alien overlords and ancient spirits. Dianetics, the bedrock of Scientology, wasn't just a self-help fad, it was marketed as a revolutionary science. Hubbard boldly declared that he had found the cure for everything from the common cold to schizophrenia. His methods, however, were anything but conventional. Central to Dianetics is the practice of auditing, a form of one-on-one counseling using a device called an e-meter. Imagine a lie detector test, but instead of catching criminals, it's used to unearth hidden traumas buried deep within your subconscious. This auditing process, according to Hubbard, could cleanse your reactive mind, freeing you from the shackles of past experiences and unlocking your true potential. It's like hitting the reset button on your brain, but instead of a technician in a blue shirt, you get a dude in a Navy uniform asking you about your deepest fears. Now, before you rush out to buy an e-meter on eBay, it's important to note that the scientific community has consistently debunked Dianetics' claims. They view it as a pseudoscience lacking empirical evidence and riddled with jargon designed to sound impressive but ultimately meaningless. But hey, who needs peer-reviewed studies when you have the power of belief on your side? In 1954, Hubbard took Dianetics a step further, founding the Church of Scientology. This wasn't just a self-improvement seminar anymore, it was a full-blown religion, complete with its own cosmology, rituals, and of course, tax-exempt status. Hubbard's science fiction roots were on full display as he unveiled the epic and frankly bizarre creation myth of Scientology. Buckle up, because this is where it gets weird. According to Hubbard, 75 million years ago, an intergalactic overlord named Xenu, yes, you read that right, brought billions of his people to Earth in spaceships that looked suspiciously like DC-8S Xenu. Being the benevolent leader that he was, then stacked these poor souls around volcanoes and nuked them. Their disembodied spirits, known as thetans, clung to the living, causing all sorts of spiritual and emotional baggage. Scientology, according to Hubbard, is the only way to free yourself from these pesky thetans and achieve true spiritual enlightenment, a state known as operating thetan. It's a long and expensive process requiring years of auditing, courses, and donations to the church. But hey, what's a few $1,000s when you're on a quest to become a godlike being? Section 4. Scientology's Global Expansion, Seeds of Controversy. With its alluring blend of self-improvement, spiritualism, and a dash of intergalactic intrigue, Scientology began to spread its tendrils across the globe. From its humble beginnings in a Los Angeles living room, the church established missions and centers in major cities worldwide. Celebrities, drawn to its promise of spiritual enlightenment and, let's be honest, a bit of Hollywood mystique, flocked to its ranks. Names like Tom Cruise and John Travolta became synonymous with Scientology, lending it an air of legitimacy and glamour. However, beneath the veneer of celebrity endorsements and slick marketing campaigns, a darker side of Scientology began to emerge. Former members came forward with disturbing accounts of psychological manipulation, financial exploitation, and harassment. The church, known for its aggressive litigation tactics, vehemently denied these allegations, dismissing critics as suppressive persons intent on destroying their religion. The stage was set for a clash of ideologies, a battle between those who saw Scientology as a path to salvation and those who viewed it as a dangerous cult. And amidst this global tug-of-war, a new frontier beckoned, the former Soviet Union, a land ripe for spiritual exploration after decades of state-sponsored atheism. Little did they know, Scientology's arrival in Ukraine would ignite a firestorm of controversy, forever altering the country's religious landscape. Communism crumbles, spirituality stirs. A new dawn in Ukraine. Picture this. The year is 1991. The Soviet Union is teetering on the brink of collapse. Ukraine tastes the sweetness of freedom. But with independence comes a spiritual vacuum. Churches reopen, their bells echoing through the squares. People flock to ancient faiths, seeking solace and community. Section 2. Scientology sneaks in. The quiet arrival of a controversial creed. Now you might imagine Scientology making a grand entrance into Ukraine, a parade of celebrities down Khreshchatyk Street. But no, my friends, Scientology's arrival was far more subtle, more like a whisper than a roar. The early 1990s were a time of chaos and reinvention in Ukraine. Amidst the confusion, Scientology slipped through the cracks. They focused on building a network in major cities like Kyiv, Odessa, and Lviv. They targeted universities and cultural centers, offering free personality tests and Dianetic seminars. These efforts were met with curiosity and suspicion. Ukrainians were wary of foreign influences, particularly from the West. Section 3. Planting the flag. The first Scientology missions take root. Despite the challenges, Scientology persisted, slowly but surely establishing a foothold in Ukrainian society. The first official Scientology mission opened its doors in Kyiv in 1994, a modest affair compared to the church's sprawling complexes in other parts of the world. But it was a start, a symbol of their growing presence in the country. More missions followed, popping up in cities across Ukraine, each one a beacon, broadcasting Scientology's message of self-improvement and spiritual enlightenment. These missions served as more than just places of worship. They were hubs of activity, offering a range of courses, seminars, and counseling sessions. They organized community outreach programs, touting their drug rehabilitation initiatives and their work with at-risk youth. They even established front groups with innocuous-sounding names like Youth for a Drug-Free Ukraine and the Way to Happiness Foundation, all designed to spread Scientology's influence and attract new recruits. Now, on the surface, these initiatives might have seemed harmless, even beneficial. Who wouldn't want a drug-free Ukraine or a path to happiness? But beneath the veneer of altruism lay Scientology's true agenda, recruitment. Their goal was to draw people in with promises of self-improvement and then slowly introduce them to the more esoteric and expensive aspects of their belief system. Section 4. From perestroika to proselytizing, riding the wave of change. Scientology's rise in Ukraine coincided with a period of profound societal transformation. The collapse of the Soviet Union unleashed a wave of economic and social reforms collectively known as perestroika. Privatization replaced state control, entrepreneurship flourished, and a new class of wealthy Ukrainians emerged. This newfound prosperity, however, came at a cost. Social safety nets crumbled, income inequality soared, and many Ukrainians struggled to adapt to the harsh realities of a market economy. Scientology, with its emphasis on personal responsibility, financial success, and the pursuit of wealth, offered a seductive solution to these anxieties. They targeted their message to aspiring entrepreneurs, promising them the tools to achieve their financial dreams through Scientology's teachings on business management and personal effectiveness. They held seminars and workshops, offering guidance on how to navigate the complexities of the new capitalist system, all while subtly weaving in Scientology's core beliefs. This approach proved surprisingly effective. Many Ukrainians, disillusioned by the broken promises of communism and eager for a taste of the good life, found themselves drawn to Scientology's message of empowerment and prosperity. They saw it as a path to success, a way to get ahead in a rapidly changing world. They didn't realize, or perhaps chose to ignore, the darker side of Scientology, the allegations of mind control, financial exploitation, and the cult-like devotion demanded by its leader. Section 5. The power of print, disseminating Dianetics in a newly free media. The fall of the Soviet Union didn't just usher in economic and social changes, it also liberated the media. For the first time in decades, Ukrainians had access to a free and independent press, a stark contrast to the state-controlled propaganda machines of the past. Newspapers and magazines flourished, offering a diversity of viewpoints and a platform for open debate. Scientology, always adept at manipulating the media to its advantage, recognized the power of this newfound freedom and seized the opportunity to spread its message. They published books, pamphlets, and brochures, translating Hubbard's often convoluted teachings into Ukrainian and Russian. They took out advertisements in newspapers and magazines, promoting Dianetics as a solution to everything from stress and anxiety to drug addiction and marital problems. They even launched their own publications, filled with glowing testimonials from supposedly satisfied Scientologists and articles extolling the virtues of Hubbard's teachings. This media blitz, while often criticized for its blatant propaganda, proved remarkably effective in raising Scientology's profile in Ukraine. People who might never have encountered Scientology before found themselves confronted with its message in their daily lives. They read about it in their newspapers, saw it advertised in their magazines, and heard about it from friends and colleagues who had been exposed to Scientology's relentless marketing campaign. Section 6, Celebrity Allure, Hollywood's Finest Grace Kaev's Streets. Now let's be honest, folks, nothing sells quite like a bit of Hollywood glamour. And Scientology, with its roster of celebrity devotees, knew exactly how to leverage star power to its advantage. They organized high-profile visits to Ukraine, bringing over some of their most famous adherents to spread the good word about L. Ron Hubbard and his teachings. John Travolta, with his megawatt smile and undeniable charisma, graced the streets of Kyiv, posing for photos and extolling the virtues of Scientology. Tom Cruise, fresh off the set of Mission Impossible, shared his personal journey of spiritual enlightenment with captivated audiences. These visits, meticulously stage-managed by Scientology's PR machine, generated a media frenzy, casting Scientology in a positive light and further fueling public curiosity about this enigmatic organization. Ukrainians, eager to embrace Western culture after decades of isolation, were starstruck. These weren't just actors, they were icons, symbols of success, wealth, and spiritual fulfillment. If Scientology was good enough for Tom Cruise, the reasoning went, then maybe, just maybe, it was good enough for them too. Section 1. The Ukrainian face of Scientology. Local figures rise to prominence. Now, while Scientology loves a good celebrity endorsement, they knew they couldn't rely solely on Hollywood heavyweights to win over Ukraine. To truly take root, they needed homegrown talent, charismatic figures who could connect with Ukrainians on a deeper level. Enter the Ukrainian Scientologists, individuals who rose through the ranks, embracing Hubbard's teachings and becoming the face of the church in their communities. These weren't just your average converts, they were doctors, lawyers, business people, and even politicians, individuals with influence and respect in their respective fields. They became living testimonials, proof that Scientology could lead to success, not just in the afterlife, but also in the here and now. They gave lectures, wrote articles, and appeared on talk shows, spreading the gospel of L. Ron Hubbard with the zeal of true believers. These local leaders played a crucial role in normalizing Scientology in Ukrainian society. They weren't seen as outsiders pushing a foreign agenda. They were friends, neighbors, and colleagues. People who just happened to have found the answer to life's big questions in the teachings of a science fiction writer turned spiritual guru. And as Scientology gained a foothold in Ukraine, so too did its influence, slowly but surely seeping into the corridors of power. Section 2. The Case of Viktor Yushchenko, Scientology and the Political Elite. Scientology's relationship with politics is a tale as old as Scientology itself. Ukraine, with its nascent democracy, proved fertile ground for Scientology's ambitions. One controversial example involves former President Viktor Yushchenko, who appointed individuals with alleged ties to Scientology to key positions. These appointments sparked accusations of undue influence within the Ukrainian government, tarnishing Yushchenko's reputation. Section 3. Building a Spiritual Empire, from modest missions to grand cathedrals. As Scientology's coffers swelled, their ambitions grew bolder. They set their sights on grander accommodations, erecting gleaming new churches and centers across Ukraine. These architectural marvels projected an image of wealth and success, impressing potential converts and conveying legitimacy. These buildings served as fortresses, physical manifestations of Scientology's growing power in Ukrainian society. Section 4. Scientology's tentacles in Ukrainian society, education, business, and beyond. Scientology's ambitions extended far beyond religion, embedding themselves in education, business, and more. They established front groups promoting Scientology's teachings on morality, drug rehabilitation, and personal effectiveness. They infiltrated schools and universities, offering free personality tests and seminars. This multi-pronged approach spread Scientology's influence throughout Ukrainian society, often without people realizing the connection. Section 5. The battle for hearts and minds, winning converts and shaping public opinion. Scientology's rise in Ukraine involved winning hearts and minds, shaping public opinion in their favor. They launched PR campaigns, portraying themselves as a benevolent force for good. They organized charity events and partnered with local organizations to bolster their image. However, former members' disturbing accounts of manipulation and exploitation created a stark contrast with Scientology's public facade. Section 6. A nation divided. Scientology ignites controversy and sparks resistance. As Scientology's influence grew, so did opposition to its presence. Religious leaders denounced it as a dangerous cult, and journalists exposed its controversial aspects. Politicians distanced themselves, and the public became polarized. This clash of ideologies played out in the media, courts, and streets, as Scientology fought to protect its image and interests. Section 1. The cultural chameleon Scientology's adaptation and appropriation in Ukraine. Scientology adapted its message to suit its surroundings, blending in like a chameleon. They draped themselves in the language of democracy and human rights, values prized in post-Soviet Ukraine. They incorporated elements of Ukrainian culture to appear more relatable. Critics argued that this was a superficial act, masking their core beliefs and practices. Section 2. A glimmer of hope or a tool for exploitation. Scientology and Ukraine's vulnerable populations. Scientology often targets those most in need of hope, and in Ukraine there was no shortage of vulnerable individuals. They focused on young people, those struggling with addiction, and the elderly. While some found solace, critics argued that the church was exploiting vulnerable populations. They offered false hope in exchange for financial contributions and loyalty. Section 3. The price of belief, financial implications and exploitation allegations. Scientology has been dogged by accusations of financial impropriety, prioritizing profit over spiritual well-being. In Ukraine, these concerns were amplified by the country's economic realities. Many faced pressure to donate significant portions of their income, creating a system ripe for exploitation. The church denied these allegations, but the volume of former members' stories fueled public concern. Section 4. Scientology and the Ukrainian psyche. A clash of individualism and collectivism. Scientology's emphasis on self-improvement arrived in Ukraine during a time of societal transformation. The fall of the Soviet Union unleashed a wave of individualism, aligning with Scientology's core tenets. However, Ukrainian culture remained deeply rooted in collectivist ideals, creating tension. This clash of values manifested in divided families and communities, with some welcoming Scientology and others viewing it as a threat. Section 5. Seeds of Distrust. Scientology's impact on Ukrainian social fabric. Scientology's arrival injected a divisive element into Ukraine's social fabric. Allegations of financial exploitation and manipulation created a climate of fear and uncertainty. Businesses, schools, and families became wary of associating with Scientologists. This atmosphere of distrust seeped into various aspects of Ukrainian life. So, where does Scientology go from here in Ukraine? Will it continue to expand its influence or face increasing resistance? Scientology has proven resilient, adept at weathering scandals and adapting its message. They exploit vulnerabilities, offering simple solutions to complex problems. However, Ukraine's conflict with Russia and suspicion of foreign influence create challenges. A new generation of informed Ukrainians may prove to be Scientology's greatest challenge yet. Scientology's arrival in Ukraine wasn't met with universal applause. Skepticism of organized groups was common in a nation emerging from totalitarian rule. Early dissent came from those familiar with Scientology's controversial history. Human rights groups and academics voiced concerns about potential exploitation. As Scientology gained a foothold, criticism grew louder, evolving into a chorus the church could no longer ignore. Scientology has always controlled information, crafting their narrative and silencing dissent. In post-Soviet Ukraine, controlling the narrative proved challenging. Journalists, fueled by newfound press freedoms, began investigating Scientology's claims and practices. Investigative reports exposed the church's controversial history and questionable dealings. The church reacted with lawsuits and intimidation, but faced a tenacious free press in Ukraine. Section 3. Illegal battlefield lawsuits, accusations, and the fight for narrative control. Scientology's playbook, when faced with criticism, has always involved a heavy dose of litigation. They're infamous for their legal aggressiveness, using lawsuits as both a shield and a sword to protect their image and silence their critics. And in Ukraine, they brought their A-game, transforming courtrooms into battlegrounds in the fight for narrative control. They sued journalists, accusing them of defamation and libel for daring to publish critical reports. They targeted former members who spoke out about their experiences, slapping them with lawsuits that dragged on for years, draining their finances and sapping their will to fight. They even went after government agencies and regulatory bodies that dared to question their practices, tying them up in legal knots and diverting resources away from more pressing issues. These legal battles, while often frustrating and costly for their opponents, ultimately backfired, drawing even more attention to the very issues Scientology sought to suppress. The more they sued, the more people started asking, what are they trying to hide? The Ukrainian legal system, while still navigating its own post-Soviet growing pains, proved to be more resilient and less susceptible to Scientology's tactics than the church had anticipated. Section 4. Religious pushback. Traditional faiths confront a newcomer. Scientology's arrival in Ukraine wasn't just a secular affair, it also set the stage for a clash of spiritual ideologies. The Ukrainian religious landscape, while diverse, was predominantly Orthodox Christian, with a long history and deep roots in Ukrainian culture and identity. And let's just say, they weren't exactly rolling out the welcome mat for this brash newcomer from the West, peddling a belief system that seemed equal parts science fiction and self-help seminar. Orthodox leaders, from priests to patriarchs, denounced Scientology as a dangerous cult, a foreign import that threatened to undermine traditional values and sow discord among the faithful. They warned their congregations about Scientology's recruitment tactics, urging them to resist the allure of their promises and to remain true to their ancestral faith. This religious pushback, while often couched in theological terms, had a real impact on Scientology's ability to gain widespread acceptance in Ukraine. For many Ukrainians, their faith was deeply intertwined with their national identity, a source of comfort and continuity in a rapidly changing world. Scientology, with its foreign origins and unconventional beliefs, represented a disruption to this order, a challenge to the very fabric of their spiritual lives. Section 5. The human cost ex-Scientologists speak out, fueling public scrutiny. While media reports and religious critiques played a crucial role in exposing Scientology's controversial aspects, it was the voices of former members that truly humanized the debate, putting a human face on the often abstract arguments about freedom of religion and the dangers of cults. In Ukraine, as in other parts of the world, ex-Scientologists began to come forward, sharing their stories of disillusionment, exploitation, and abuse within the church. They spoke of the immense pressure to donate money, the psychological manipulation techniques used to ensure obedience, and the harassment they faced when they dared to question Scientology's teachings or attempted to leave the organization. These personal testimonies, often heartbreaking and deeply disturbing, resonated with the Ukrainian public in a way that abstract arguments about religious freedom never could. They put a human face on the cost of Scientology's ambitions, revealing the pain and suffering that often lurked beneath the church's carefully curated image of success and enlightenment. And as more and more ex-members came forward, the pressure on Ukrainian authorities to take action against Scientology intensified. Section 6. Scientology on trial, a nation grapples with questions of faith, freedom, and exploitation. The rise of Scientology in Ukraine, with its attendant controversies and conflicts, presented a unique challenge for a nation still grappling with its newfound freedom and searching for its place in the world. On the one hand, Ukraine's constitution guaranteed freedom of religion, a right fiercely defended after decades of communist repression. On the other hand, the government had a responsibility to protect its citizens from harmful and exploitative practices, even those carried out under the guise of religious freedom. This delicate balancing act, this struggle to reconcile competing values, played out in courtrooms, in the media, and in the court of public opinion. Lawsuits challenging Scientology's tax-exempt status, alleging financial impropriety, and seeking justice for alleged victims of the church's practices made their way through the legal system. Public debates raged, with passionate arguments both for and against Scientology's right to exist and operate within Ukraine. The future of Scientology in Ukraine, much like the future of Ukraine itself, remained uncertain. The country found itself at a crossroads, facing a choice to embrace the unfettered freedoms of the West, even those that might allow for the presence of controversial groups like Scientology, or to prioritize the preservation of traditional values and the protection of its citizens from potential harm, even at the risk of curtailing certain freedoms. Scientology's future in a nation at war. Ukraine, once brimming with optimism, is now locked in a desperate struggle for survival. The Russian invasion has shattered dreams and tested resilience. Yet the story of Scientology in Ukraine is far from over. The war has displaced millions, leaving individuals vulnerable and traumatized. In these moments, Scientology's promises may prove irresistible. Even if the war were to end tomorrow, the scars left by Scientology's tumultuous presence in Ukraine would likely linger. The church's aggressive recruitment tactics and controversial practices have eroded trust in organized religion. In Ukraine, where faith is intertwined with national identity, this erosion is significant. The Orthodox Church, the dominant institution, has emerged with its moral authority somewhat tarnished. Scientology's arrival has fueled skepticism towards organized religion. Some Ukrainians may turn to alternative spiritual practices or secular philosophies. The long-term impact of Scientology's presence remains to be seen, but it has left an indelible mark. If there's a silver lining to be found in the saga of Scientology's rise in Ukraine, it lies in the heightened awareness and critical thinking skills that the controversy has engendered. The Ukrainian people, having endured decades of propaganda and misinformation under Soviet rule, are no strangers to the dangers of blind faith and unquestioning obedience. Scientology's arrival, with its own brand of dogma and its alleged attempts to silence dissent, served as a stark reminder of the importance of skepticism, critical thinking, and the courage to question authority. The media, despite facing pressure and intimidation tactics, played a crucial role in exposing Scientology's controversial aspects, empowering the public with information and fostering a climate of accountability. The legal system, while not always perfect, demonstrated a degree of independence and resilience in the face of Scientology's legal maneuvering, signaling that even powerful organizations are not above the law. Perhaps the most enduring legacy of Scientology's presence in Ukraine will be the strengthened resolve of its people to guard their newfound freedoms, to protect themselves from exploitation, and to approach all belief systems, whether religious or secular, with a healthy dose of skepticism and critical thinking. This newfound awareness, this commitment to truth-seeking and independent thought may prove to be the most effective antidote to the allure of organizations like Scientology, not just in Ukraine, but wherever they attempt to spread their influence. The story of Scientology in Ukraine highlights a dilemma faced by many democracies, balancing freedom of religion with protecting citizens from harmful practices. Ukraine's constitution guarantees freedom of conscience, a right hard-won after decades of suppression. The government must safeguard citizens from exploitation, even under the cloak of religious freedom. This delicate balancing act is not easily resolved. Outright banning Scientology could infringe on the rights of other religious minorities. Ignoring Scientology's alleged transgressions would be irresponsible. The path forward lies in regulating without infringing on the right to exist. Strengthening laws and providing support ensures responsible and ethical religious freedom. As we zoom out from the specific case of Scientology in Ukraine, it's worth reflecting on a broader truth about the human condition, our innate desire for meaning, purpose, and a sense of belonging. However, it can also be exploited, manipulated by those seeking power, control, or simply profit. But it's certainly not the only one, nor will it be the last. Each promising a path to enlightenment, salvation, or simply a solution to life's inevitable challenges, with a critical eye, a discerning mind, and a healthy dose of skepticism. But it's a journey best undertaken with open eyes, an open heart, and a firm grasp on reality.